Another blood-red sunset and yet another moon phase, and still another 100 miles to my next resting place. Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone, but feeling good and feeling strong, knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving.
Hey now all, I'm Joey C. Welcome back to another episode of Spirit Sherpa. This is the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. With me as always is the Spirit Doctor, Kelle Sparta. Hey Kelly.
Hey Joey.
How's it going?
It's going well.
I'm very intrigued about our episode today.
I thought it would be a fun one.
Every time we start talking magic, I always get like, woo, magic time again. It's like, what new toys is Kelly going to give us today?
Yay, toys.
Yes. So what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about the practices that you may want to begin to engage if you want to be an apprentice magician.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you things that are very chop wood, carry water sort of things that allow you to build your capacity and build your knowledge base so that when you are ready to really step in and learn, you are at a better level than just, basic beginner.
Okay.
I had a conversation last night. Brian came over last night. Brian was on the episode that we did about the African traditions, Ocha.
Yeah.
And he and his wife and one of his godchildren, which is what they call their students in that tradition. Mm-hmm. And we had a conversation. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that so many people are coming in from sort of the new age YouTube type approach, yep, where there's a sense that you know stuff, but you don't know stuff, but you do know stuff, but you think you know stuff, but you got 6 different things from 6 different people, and you're trying to form them all into a cosmology that doesn't necessarily fit with itself or anything else. And some people come in going, I got it. And other people come in going, and honestly, it's easier to work with the people who come in going, right, because the I got it people, you have to break them down and go, no, you don't got it, right? Because it's its own challenge in that way. And, we were talking about the fact that when Kathy and I started teaching people originally, we were taking people from the pagan community and bringing them up into a better understanding of how magic works and how the metaphysics work and things like that. And that the people coming in now may have never even done a guided meditation in their entire lives. Right. That's a completely different place that we have to start from when we're dealing with people who are in that space. Not a problem either way. It's just, we realized that we had to sort of backtrack for them because they didn't have the inherent language of ritual that the people who had been in the pagan community for a while did. Mm-hmm. Even if you came out of like Catholicism or some other high ritual religion, right, that is a leg up because you have a foundation in ritual. You have it in your bones, even if you don't understand it in your head. There's a piece of you that just gets it from the repetition of having attended it long enough. Kathy and I never had anybody sit down and say, well, this is what air does, and this is what fire does, and this is what, earth does, and water. And we didn't have that. We just showed up to enough rituals where they were doing it often enough that it just became part of us. Right. This episode is designed to be a primer for people who did not come up through the pagan community and who want to have what the people in the pagan community have as a foundation. And so buckle up. We're gonna give you a bunch of things to do. This will be one of the few episodes where it's not going to be filled with don't do this or you'll blow yourself up. We're going to give you practices. We're going to give you things to focus on and ways to put yourself in a position to better understand magic from wherever you are. Okay. The very first thing I want to say is if you are anywhere where there is anything available, attend as many rituals as you possibly can. It doesn't matter if they're good or not. Okay. In fact, if they're bad, it's actually a good thing sometimes.
Really?
The reason for that is that and you guys have been presumably you've been listening to the podcast for a while now, and you have an understanding of what is proper and what is not proper. Mm-hmm. And you're going to walk into rituals where they don't do things the way that I've described them. And you're going to go, wow, that sucked. You'll be like, yep. And you're going to know what was wrong with it. But you're also going to see some things that maybe I haven't talked about yet. Okay. Because, different traditions approach things from different ways. Brian and I were talking about a ritual that we're going to do together, and he brought up something that would be a way to clear the way for the ritual that I had not even considered. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, because I don't think like that. And right. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, that would be really useful. And so, going to another tradition and learning from somebody who doesn't think the way that you think, who hasn't come from the path that you've come from, really broadens your perspective. No matter whether the ritual is awesome or terrible or anywhere in between, you learn something. Right. And you learn something, especially if you come home and you sit down and you journal about it. You say, this worked, this didn't work, this I felt weird about and I don't know why. And if you have one of those I felt weird about it and I don't know why questions, bring it to the after party. We'll talk about it. I can explain to you why you felt weird about it if you describe it for me. But attend as many rituals as you can, because that's really going to get it into your bones in the way that we're talking about. And it's going to give you an exposure to different ways of being.
So you mentioned that coming home and journaling about it is a great way to do it. But what does the journaling actually do in that case? How does that help?
Well, so for a lot of us, we don't know what our own feelings are until we give ourselves space to think about it. Okay. So it gives you a record of the places that you've been and the things that you've done. And, if you write down what the ritual was and what the elements were, then when you go to create your own rituals later, you'll be able to look at the different elements of different rituals you've been to. I wish I had done that. I've been to so many rituals, I can't remember them all. Right. And it would be lovely to have that written down. And then you'll be able to, take elements and use them in different things. And then in addition, it also helps you to really break down what you're feeling about what you experienced. Okay. So you can be like, oh, well, this piece worked for me. So like I went to a ritual in Boston, I don't know, 6 years ago. And the ritual was good. They had a solid container. They did a lot of things, but there were 2 things that they did differently than I would have. One was they didn't close in the opposite direction that they came in. Yep. They closed in the same direction. And the other one was they tried to release something and bring something in at the same time. And that didn't work. It was too hard. Yep. I'm good at bilocating and I couldn't do it. That's a good learning for you as an apprentice magician to go, okay, you can't release something and bring something in at the same time. Right. It doesn't work. You learn from other people's mistakes instead of from your own. Yay, brilliance, no pain, right? We like that. Just don't go up and tell the people what they did wrong. Right. Nobody appreciates that. Nobody wants your opinion. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't ask you, it is not your place to say.
Now, why does the releasing and pulling in not work? Is that because it's 2 different energies trying to coexist?
Yeah, you're trying to do opposites at the same time.
Yeah, it's push and pull.
It's push and pull. Yeah. You've got a single channel and you're trying to push and pull at the same time. It's like, ah! And you can't focus on 2 things at once. I need to focus on what I'm releasing so I can make sure I get all of it together in my head and collect all my energy into the packet and then release it. Mm-hmm. And then I want to really be conscious about what I'm trying to bring in. I want to really know exactly what the pieces and parts are of what I'm trying to pull into my beingness. I need to get my focus so that I can pull it in. And you can't do those 2 things at once.
So that's a good lesson here for the apprentice magician as well, is learning how to assign your focus when you're doing these sorts of things.
Yeah. And that's another thing, is that it's going to teach you how to protect yourself. Yeah. You'll learn by doing. Yeah. And so, you'll get a little burned every now and again. It happens. Yeah. But, that brings me to the next piece.
Which is?
which is get healing regularly. The way that I suggest, unless you've got a fair amount of cash on hand, the best way to get as much healing as you need, and you do need a lot when you're getting started in this, is to partner up with somebody else who does healing, learn a healing practice yourself. Reiki is a very good one to start with. It's pretty ubiquitous, and it's training wheels for energy users, and I like it. And, if you get to Reiki 2, it's fully sufficient for anything you would need to do at this stage. So you do a weekend, you get Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 in a weekend, you're good to go. And now you can go to all these Reiki shares, right? And so you can get healing on a weekly basis, which if you can find it, I would really recommend get healing on a weekly basis, because there's a lot of energy in your field, especially if you come from that challenged childhood we keep talking about. There's a lot of healing that you could use. Right. And it also gives you practice giving, because you're doing a share. Yep. So you get practice as being a healer too. That practice expands your ability to hold more energy, which is the other piece of the work, is expanding your capacity. And so the more healing work you do, the more you'll build your capacity. The thing I do want to say, though, is at a Reiki share, when you're on the table, you're the one receiving, do not pay attention to what other people are doing. Right. And do not try and direct the energy, and do not try and give energy back. And be in receive mode, because that's the whole purpose of being on the table, is to receive. And you're actually shortchanging the people who are doing the healing work for you by trying to take the control away from them.
Yeah, and that's a difficult thing for an energy healer to get in their head sometimes, especially if they're to share, because the intent of being there is to give and to receive. So they've got to realize when it's their turn to receive, shut it off, Reiki off.
Right. Reiki off.
Reiki off.
That's right. So yeah, I really recommend that. And, rituals, just for the record, when I was talking about going to rituals, that also includes things like shamanic journeys and guided meditations and, things like that. So what I'm referencing when I talk about rituals is anything that's not a class, that you're not learning a skill. Yep. If it's an experience, it counts as a ritual. So you want something that's an experience. I do want you to go to rituals, but guided meditations, shamanic journeys, I probably wouldn't go to soul retrievals, because that's group soul retrieval is just a bad idea. Things of the sound healings, things like that. They're all great ways to experience ritual. Okay. I want to go back to the running energy, the building your capacity piece, right? There are practices you can do, and you can find them on the internet. There's that are ways to cycle your energy. Okay. There are breathing techniques. There are just a visualization to cycle your energy through your energy field, to open, the tree meditation that we've talked about, the crown chakra and the root chakra. Do one of those practices every day. Okay. It doesn't have to be the same one, but I would encourage that if you're going to do one, that you should do it for at least a month every day before you cycle on to another one, because you want to really master. You're not going to master anything in a month, but you want to have it ingrained enough that you can come back to it at any time. Yep. Right. So you want it to be sort of muscle memoried, but it's energy muscles, right? Yeah. But do that. Do one of those practices every day. Okay. And that, it can be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it is a way for you to get better in tune with your own energy field. It's a way for you to get better in tune with your own ability to move your energy. And it's a way to grow your capacity to run energy. Okay. Now, with that said, I know there's going to be some overachievers out there who are like, I'm going to do it for an hour a day, right? I know you're out there. I know you're laughing right now. So the thing is that I want you to make sure that you're not going to overextend yourself. This is not about how fast can I grow my capacity and how much can I stretch and, how hard can I run? It is about a growth process. Think of it as if you were weightlifting.
Yep.
Right? We're doing the multiple reps, the low weight multiple rep approach, not the high weight exhaustion approach.
Right.
You want the low weight multiple reps approach because you are not as likely to hurt yourself and blow yourself up. Now, you'll know that you're getting to the edge of where you don't want to go if you start to shake, if you start to vibrate, if you're running energy so much that you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
If you get to that, you're doing too much. Back the hell off.
Okay.
A lot. Not a little, back the hell off a lot. I would even say take a break for a day or two if you did that to yourself. I was just going to say, is that a
go down to shutdown mode for a bit?
Right.
Yeah.
Take a day or two off to recover if you do that to yourself, and then come back to it slowly.
Okay.
Because I've got somebody who comes down from DC who was doing that, and I'm like, okay, slow the fuck down. You're going to hurt yourself. Okay. Now, the next piece that I would recommend is regularly building altars in your house.
Oh, okay.
There's multiple fold for that. One is that the building of an altar encourages you to set intentions regularly in your life. Mm-hmm. And practicing setting your intentions is super important, because if you're not, who is?
Right.
Without an intention, you're unconsciously controlling your life instead of consciously controlling your life. And if you haven't done the work, the unconscious stuff is going to bite you in the butt. Right? So how about we do some conscious work, right?
And if people have questions on altars, they can go back and listen to episode 6, which is where we talked about altars specifically, or they can ask their questions in the Facebook group, as we often say.
In the Facebook group,
yep.
Yes. Setting your intention is a good practice. It's also good practice to be able to feel into the energy of an altar in how you're placing the elements of the altar. Mm-hmm. Part of an altar is setting the elements in specific energy places where they're in resonance with one another.
Right.
And choosing the right items for the altar. And so some people are going to get all up into their heads about this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being in your head initially and saying, okay, well, I'm going to do an altar to bring love into my life.
Right.
And so I want rose quartz because rose quartz is about love. And I want this crystal over here that's heart-shaped. And I want, flowers on the altar because I like to get flowers. And that's fine. Be in your head about it, right?
Yep.
Think about the things that mean love to you.
Yeah.
Then get out of your head when you place them.
Yep.
And don't be attached to getting everything that you pulled out to put on the altar. Because oftentimes when you start to set the energy up, some things just don't go.
Right.
And that's the other practice that is important, is being able to recognize what the energy is asking for, what the altar is asking for, and to give it to it. Sometimes you're going to put all the stuff on, or some of the stuff on, and the other ones don't go, and the altar is still going to be asking for something else that you have to go find
that you hadn't planned in your ingredient list.
Exactly. This is part of the process of learning how to do magic, is understanding that it's not just what you want, it's what the energetic that you're creating wants. Yep. It's a process of learning to have a conversation with the energy that you're creating.
Yep.
And so that's the reason that I recommend building altars regularly.
And there's a lot of different things within the magical sphere and within the energy healing that require you to feel into placement and things like that with crystal grids and that sort of thing. It's not necessarily always a defined shape you're following. It's sometimes just the feel of where it needs to be.
Yeah. And that will translate actually as you get further into your process. If you begin to do ritual work with other people over time, it will translate into that, where you will recognize, oh, I need to move physically to a different location, right, because I don't feel like I'm in the right place.
Yep.
And I'm going to find this connection with that place, and I'll walk until I get there.
Right.
You don't know where you're going until you're in the right place. Or I feel like we're missing something. What are we missing? Right.
Yeah.
That translates up. An altar is a mini ritual. So it translates up as you expand out into your processes.
And that's similar to what you've talked about when you described the constellation workshops that you've done, where sometimes it's just the placement of the individual sort of holding the energy of that particular element of the constellation. They have to be in the right place in order for that to feel like it's working and doing what it needs to do.
Yeah. The next piece I'm going to say is stillness and presence practice.
Yeah.
This again comes back to when you go to become a ritualist in a larger context. This expands across other things, but in this particular context, you won't know you're out of place in that ritual if you're not still and present.
Yep.
You have to begin a stillness and presence practice. That is, again, it can be 5 minutes a day.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It can be every time, if you work a day job, it could be every time you take a break, you spend 5 minutes in stillness.
Yep.
The other thing that stillness and presence practice does for you is to help you to focus your intent.
Okay.
If you cannot get still, if you cannot get present, you cannot focus your intent.
Yep.
And so your workings will suck because they will be ADD, blah, 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 I don't know,
right.
Random mix of randomness, right?
Yep.
And I want to be clear what I mean about stillness and presence practice. Okay. Stillness and presence are basically the same thing. They're just different words for it, right? Stillness and presence are about bringing yourself into the present moment and being still in it. I don't mean meditation.
Okay.
Meditation is about clearing your mind. Stillness will clear your mind to a certain extent, right? But it is more about being fully present where you are in this moment and not anywhere else, not thinking about the future, not worrying about the past, not wondering what you're going to say next, but just being with what is in the moment right now. You'll know you're there if everything around you just gets a little bit sharper,
yep,
a little bit brighter.
Okay.
That's the visual cue that you're fully present. And that practice, again, 5 minutes, no
yep,
big deal, is something that would be really super helpful. And the longer you can do it, the longer you can maintain your focus. So that would be something that you would try and grow over time.
Okay.
One of my favorite stillness practices is to just stretch. Oh. Because I'm not a good sitter. So I'm much better at stillness in movement, which makes no sense in a physical reality, but it makes a lot of sense in the energetic. I like to just stretch. I like to be with a single stretch for a long period of time. So I may stretch one leg in one way for 2 to 5 minutes.
Wow. And
in that moment, I am intensely aware of every single muscle in that leg, every single muscle in my body as it relates to that leg, every single feeling that's happening in the leg, every moment that muscle releases a little bit, every breath that I take in my body. It's a great way to really practice stillness in a very focused way.
And very much presence.
Yes, very much presence. So the next piece that I would say is, and it's going to seem unrelated because it is, but not. So the next piece is an information gathering piece, and that's about studying mythology. Oh. Yeah, I know. It sounds a little, we're doing it on the podcast. Right. So we're helping with that. But mythology forms the foundation for ritual. Okay. And much like you cannot make words without the alphabet. Yep. You cannot make ritual without mythology. Okay. You need a metaphorical structure on which to hang your ritual. And the metaphorical structure is often mythological. Not always, but a lot. Yep. And so the more you can study every type of mythology there is, the more building blocks you have for your rituals. And the greater understanding you're going to have of the rituals you attend, a greater understanding you're going to have of the media you consume. Yep. You'd be stunned what the mythological references are to some of these things. Yeah. The Matrix has got a freak ton of mythological references. Morpheus is a god. Right. So, if that'd be a fun one to go look up, right? Go look up Morpheus. He is the god of sleep. Go figure, right? So tons of mythological references that you may or may not actually know if you haven't studied. And so as you start to read these things, you're going to be like, oh my God, I got this reference and I got that reference, right?
Yep.
And so your experience of media is going to be a much richer experience as you grow your mythological references. The other thing I would have you study is fairy tales. Children's stories, preferably in their original form.
Okay.
So not Disney, but Grimm, because these also form a foundation of our understandings.
Okay.
And so the reason that we use mythology in ritual is because it is baked into the collective consciousness.
Yep.
And it impacts us at an archetypal level.
Yep.
That surpasses and circumvents our conscious and subconscious minds.
Yep. And I'm sure that fables fall in there as well. And these other things that become these foundational parts of our speech that we don't even realize. They become sayings and things that we say that we don't necessarily even know where they come from. We just know what they mean. Like
Ring Around the Rosie,
right? Exactly.
Being about the bubonic plague.
Exactly.
Yeah. Things like that. I thought it was brilliant when somebody pointed out to me that Princess Diana broke the archetype of the fairy princess. I was like, oh, yes, she absolutely did. Oh my God. Talk about a life's work. She came onto the planet to break the fairy